I still remember the exact shade of blue on the pregnancy test. Not the line or the plus sign. The plastic casing itself. Strange how your mind fixates on the oddest details when your world is shattering. It was Robin's egg blue, the same color as the throw pillows I'd bought for our living room the day Gabriel told me he loved my eye for making a house feel like home. I wasn't supposed to find the test. It had been buried deep in my sister Cassidy's bathroom trash, wrapped in toilet paper, and pushed beneath wadded cotton balls. I'd only gone in there looking for some aspirin while helping her prepare for our mother's 65th birthday celebration. I can't explain why I unwrapped it. Something in my gut, maybe. A whisper of intuition I'd been ignoring for months. "Olivia? Did you find the aspirin?" Cassidy called from the kitchen, her voice carrying that slight edge of nervousness I'd dismissed as pre-party stress. I stood frozen, staring at the positive test in my trembling hands. As I was about to wrap it back up, something caught my eye. A small note folded inside the test packaging. The kind of note Gabriel always left for me in the early days of our marriage. My stomach twisted as I unfolded it. Can't wait to tell her. 2 more weeks until the first trimester is over. Love you always, G. G. Gabriel. My husband's handwriting was unmistakable. The distinctive way he curved his G, the same signature I'd seen on birthday cards and anniversary notes for 12 years. The room seemed to tilt sideways. It wasn't just a pregnancy test. It was irrefutable evidence of the ultimate betrayal. "Olivia?" Cassidy appeared in the doorway, her face draining of color when she saw what I was holding. "G for Gabriel, right?" I whispered, my voice surprisingly steady as I held up the note. "My husband is the father of your baby." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of the horrible truth I now knew with absolute certainty. She didn't speak, just pressed her hand protectively over her slightly swollen belly, a gesture so instinctive it confirmed what the note had already told me. "How long?" I asked, feeling strangely calm as shock numbed my system. Her eyes filled with tears. "Liv, please. How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Each word felt like glass in my throat. The silence stretched between us until she whispered, "A year and a half. Since after the miscarriage." The confession hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been grieving our lost child, my husband had been starting a new family with my sister. I pushed past her, stumbling into the hallway, needing air, needing escape. My mother stood there, clearly having overheard everything, her expression not shocked but resigned. "You knew," I said, the realization washing over me like ice water. "You've known all along." Mom reached for me. "Sweetheart, these things happen in families sometimes. Gabriel and I have been talking about how to tell you." "Gabriel and you." The betrayal doubled, tripled. "You've been discussing my husband's affair with my sister behind my back?" "We didn't want to hurt you," she said, as if that explained everything. "Cassidy didn't plan this. Neither did Gabriel. Sometimes feelings just stop." I held up my hand, now clutching both the pregnancy test and the damning note. "Don't you dare talk to me about their feelings." I walked past her into the living room where Gabriel was arranging drinks for the party, whistling. Fucking whistling. He turned to me with a smile that died instantly when he saw my face and what I was holding in my hand. "Liv, I can explain," he said immediately, confirming his guilt before I'd even spoken a word. "Explain what? That you've been sleeping with my sister? That she's pregnant with your child? That you left this little love note inside her pregnancy test?" I held up the evidence, my hand trembling with rage. The crystal tumbler slipped from his hand, shattering on the hardwood floor he'd insisted we couldn't afford to replace last year, while apparently finding money for secret dinners with my sister, if their credit card statements were anything to go by. "It's not what you think," he started, using the same soothing tone he used when talking me out of my overreactions. "We never meant for this to happen." That phrase, the universal disclaimer of cheaters everywhere, as if intent negated impact. My mother and Cassidy hovered in the doorway now, a tableau of guilt. 3 people I'd trusted most in the world, watching me with pity and apprehension, waiting to see if I'd scream or cry or break something. Instead, I smiled. It must have been terrifying, that smile, because Gabriel actually took a step back. 12 years, I said quietly. 12 years I've been faithful to you. I helped put you through law school. I postponed having children because you weren't ready. I defended you to my father when he said you'd never amount to anything. I turned to Cassidy. And I shared everything with you. My home, my secrets, my insecurities about not being able to get pregnant after the miscarriage. Was that entertaining for you? Watching me cry about wanting a baby while you were sleeping with my husband? She flinched as if I'd struck her. It wasn't like that, Liv. We fell in love. We didn't choose this. Love. The word was like acid. My mother stepped forward, ever the mediator. Let's all sit down and discuss this rationally. What's done is done. Now we need to figure out how to move forward as a family. I looked at her with new eyes. This woman who'd taught me that family came first, who'd lectured me about loyalty and honesty, was now suggesting I accept the unacceptable. As a family, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of the word. Is that what we are? I walked to the coat closet and pulled out my jacket, my movements deliberate and controlled. Olivia, please don't leave like this, my mother pleaded. Where are you going? I turned back to them one last time, memorizing their faces, not out of love, but because I wanted to remember this moment with perfect clarity. The moment before I declared war. I'm going to start the rest of my life, I said simply. And I promise you this. You will all remember today as the biggest mistake you ever made. Not one of them tried to stop me as I walked out the door. The first night was the worst. I checked into a hotel downtown, the kind Gabriel always complained was overpriced whenever I suggested a staycation. I paid for the presidential suite with our joint credit card. A small rebellion, but it felt good. I sat on the balcony overlooking the city lights and methodically pieced together the timeline of their betrayal. The late-night texts Gabriel would hide when I entered the room. The sudden Sunday brunches Cassidy invited him to discuss your birthday gift, that I wasn't welcome to join. My mother's inexplicable defense of Gabriel during our recent arguments, always taking his side. How long had it been going on? 6 months? A year? Had it started before or after my miscarriage 2 years ago? The one that left me in a depression so deep I could barely function while Gabriel seemed to recover suspiciously quickly? I scrolled through photos on my phone, stopping at one from last Christmas. Gabriel with his arm around Cassidy, both of them laughing at some private joke while my mother looked on fondly. I'd been behind the camera, as usual, capturing moments for a family that was secretly fracturing behind my back. Around 3 a.m., the texts and calls started pouring in. Gabriel, please come home. We need to talk about this. Cassidy, I know you hate me right now, but please don't do anything rash. Think about the baby, her baby, their baby. The child I'd dreamed of having, now growing inside my sister. My mother's message was the most infuriating. This family has survived worse. Come home tomorrow and we'll sort everything out. Remember, blood is thicker than water. I laughed until I cried. Then I just cried. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of my tears or rage. I would be calculated, cold, strategic. I returned home when I knew Gabriel would be at work. I packed methodically, clothes, personal documents, the external hard drive containing my design portfolio, and the antique jewelry my grandmother had left specifically to me, not to Cassidy. As I was leaving, I noticed the framed photo from our wedding, Gabriel looking at me with what I'd once believed was adoration. Now I recognized it as the look of a man who'd settled, who'd always had his eye on someone else, my younger, prettier sister. I took the photo out of the frame and left it on the kitchen counter, torn in half. When Gabriel came home that night, I was sitting in our darkened living room, calm and composed. Thank God, he breathed. I've been worried sick. Have you? I asked, my voice neutral. That's interesting. He approached cautiously. Liv, we need to talk about this like adults. Adults, I repeated. Is that what you call yourself? An adult who sleeps with his wife's sister? Who gets her pregnant while lying to my face every day? It wasn't planned, he insisted. It just happened. Things don't just happen, Gabriel. An affair is a series of choices. Every text, every secret meeting, every lie. Those were choices you made. He sat heavily on the couch across from me. I do love you, Olivia. But with Cassidy, it's different. There's a passion we couldn't fight. The honesty was almost worse than the lies. How long? I asked. He hesitated. Does it matter? How? Long. A year and a half, he admitted. It started after the miscarriage. You were so distant, and Cassidy was there, supporting both of us. I cut him off with a raised hand. So while I was grieving the baby we lost, you were fucking my sister. And now she's pregnant with the child you told me you weren't ready to have. He flinched at my language, but didn't deny it. And my mother? When did she find out? About 6 months ago. She walked in on us at the lake house. She was upset at first, but she understood that these things happen. These things happen? I echoed incredulously. No, Gabriel. These things don't just happen in normal families. These things happen when people are selfish, disloyal, and cruel. Your mother thought it would be easier if we waited to tell you until after Cassidy's first trimester. Given your history with pregnancy difficulties, the calculated cruelty of it took my breath away. They'd hidden it not to spare my feelings, but to ensure the pregnancy was viable before blowing up my life. I gave you everything, I whispered. I supported you through law school. I moved away from my friends for your career. I planned my whole life around you. I know, he said, with the audacity to look sad. And I'll make sure you're taken care of financially. I'm not a monster, Liv. I laughed then, a sound so hollow it seemed to echo in the room. That's exactly what you are, all of you. I stood up and retrieved the envelope I'd prepared earlier. What's this? He asked. Divorce papers. I've already signed my part. His face darkened. You're being impulsive. We should take some time, get counseling maybe. No, I said simply. We're done. Sign the papers or don't. Either way, I'm gone. As I headed for the door with my suitcases, he called after me. Where will you go? Back to your mother's? She thinks you should forgive us, you know, for the sake of the family. I turned back one last time. I don't have a family anymore. I gave everything to all of you, and you discarded me like I was nothing. But I am not nothing, Gabriel. Remember that in the days ahead. I walked out, leaving him staring after me, the first flicker of real fear in his eyes. Good. He should be afraid. They all should. Because while they thought they were watching me break, they failed to notice I was actually gathering the pieces. Not to put myself back together, but to forge something new and dangerous from the shards. I disappeared for 2 weeks. Not literally. I checked into another high-end hotel under my own name, but I went silent. No responses to their increasingly frantic messages. No social media activity. Nothing. Let them wonder. Let them worry. What they didn't know was that I was working, preparing, planning. The first phone call I made was to Eliza Harper, the most cutthroat divorce attorney in the state. She had a reputation for leaving wealthy, cheating husbands with nothing but their underwear. Your husband slept with your sister and got her pregnant? Eliza confirmed during our first meeting, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her leather portfolio. And your mother conspired to hide it from you? Yes. She smiled thinly. Then we're going to absolutely destroy him, Mrs. Blackwood. Olivia, I corrected. I don't want his name anymore. The second call was to Julian Winters, my college boyfriend who now headed the digital forensics division at a major security firm. He still had a soft spot for me, especially after I'd comforted him through his own divorce years ago. I need access to deleted text messages, emails, anything between these phone numbers, I explained, sliding a paper with Gabriel's and Cassidy's information across his desk. Julian frowned. Liv, this is borderline illegal. Is it illegal to recover messages from a phone that's legally mine? Our cell phone account is in my name. I pay the bills. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. The third call was the most difficult. I reached out to my father, who'd moved to Arizona after the divorce 5 years ago. He and my mother barely spoke, and he'd never warmed to Gabriel. Dad, I said when he answered, my voice breaking for the first time since I'd left. I need your help. I told him everything. About the affair, the pregnancy, my mother's betrayal. The silence on the line was so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Then he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. I always knew there was something off about him. And your sister, she's too much like your mother. What do you mean? He sighed heavily. Your mother had an affair with my brother when we were first married. Did you know that? I sat down hard on the hotel bed. What? No. She swore it was just a one-time mistake. I forgave her because I loved her. But some people, Olivia, some people confuse love with possession. They think if they want something, they deserve to have it, regardless of who gets hurt. The revelation about my mother added another layer to her betrayal. This wasn't just her accepting Gabriel and Cassidy's affair. It was history repeating itself with her blessing. I need your help with something specific, I told my father. Do you still have connections at Meridian Investments? I do, he confirmed. Why? Because Gabriel's law firm handles their biggest client accounts, and I have reason to believe he's been cutting ethical corners to win cases. My father's silence was thoughtful this time. You're going after his career. I'm going after everything, I said softly. Will you help me? I'll be on the next flight, he promised. With my team in place, I turned to gathering evidence. Julian delivered more than I'd hoped for. Hundreds of text messages between Gabriel and Cassidy dating back nearly 2 years. Some sent while I was literally in the next room. Photos they'd exchanged. Evidence of the apartment Gabriel had secretly rented for their meetings, paid for with our joint account. Most damning was an exchange from the week after my miscarriage. Gabriel. She won't stop crying. I can't deal with this anymore. Cassidy. Come over. I'll make it better. She'll never know. Gabriel. On my way. Tell her I'm working late if she calls you. I printed everything, organizing it meticulously in labeled folders. From my father's connections, I obtained proof that Gabriel had falsified evidence in 2 major cases for Meridian's clients. Not enough to be criminally liable, but enough to trigger an ethics investigation that would destroy his reputation at the firm where he was being considered for partner. But my most valuable asset came from an unexpected source, my mother's longtime housekeeper, Maria, who'd always treated me more like a daughter than my actual mother had. Mrs. Eleanor has been helping them plan for months, Maria told me when I visited her secretly. She set up a trust for the baby. I saw the papers when I was cleaning. A trust? I asked, confused. Maria nodded solemnly. From your grandmother's estate. The money that was supposed to be divided between you and Miss Cassidy. Mrs. Eleanor changed the distribution. My grandmother's estate, worth nearly $2 million, had been held in trust until both my sister and I turned 35. I was 3 months from my 35th birthday. Can you get me copies of those documents? I asked Maria. Her eyes widened. That would be stealing. It would be protecting what's rightfully mine, I countered gently. They're stealing from me, Maria. All of them. 2 days later, I had copies of everything. The trust amendment, drafted but not yet filed, that would redirect my portion of the inheritance to a new trust for the benefit of any grandchildren of Eleanor Lawson. What my mother didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my grandmother had secretly given me a letter on her deathbed. Don't open this unless someone tries to take what's yours, she'd whispered, squeezing my hand with surprising strength for a woman in her final hours. I'd kept that letter in a safe deposit box for 7 years, almost forgetting its existence. Now, I retrieved it with trembling hands. Inside was a single page, written in my grandmother's elegant script. My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, then my suspicions about your mother have proven correct. Eleanor has always favored Cassidy, perhaps because she sees herself in your sister's selfish nature. I've structured my will to appear as though Eleanor has authority to modify the trust. But this is a false provision. The real trust documents are with my attorney, Howard Fleming. The inheritance is locked for both you and Cassidy until age 35 and cannot be modified by anyone, not even Eleanor. I love both my granddaughters, but you, Olivia, have your grandfather's integrity. That is worth more than any inheritance. With enduring love, Grandmother Rose. Along with the letter was Howard Fleming's business card. I called him immediately. Ms. Lawson, I've been expecting your call for some time, the elderly attorney said when we met in his office. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, very perceptive. She knew my mother would try something like this. He nodded gravely. Rose witnessed how Eleanor manipulated your grandfather's estate to favor herself. She was determined not to let history repeat itself. He slid a document across the desk. This is the actual trust. As you can see, your mother has no legal authority to redirect your inheritance. Any documents suggesting otherwise are fraudulent. I felt a wave of gratitude for my grandmother's foresight. What happens when my mother tries to file her amendment? Howard smiled thinly. That would constitute attempted fraud, a criminal offense. The last piece of my plan fell into place. For 6 weeks, I gathered evidence, built alliances, and prepared for war. I rented a small apartment, opened new bank accounts, and secured a position at a prestigious design firm in the city, a job Gabriel had discouraged me from pursuing years ago because it would distract from supporting his career. All the while, their messages continued. Gabriel, please, Olivia, this silence is childish. We need to discuss divorce terms. Cassidy, sis, I know you're hurt, but we can work through this. The baby deserves to know its aunt. My mother, enough drama, Olivia. Come home and let's discuss this like family. You're not the first woman whose husband has strayed, and this self-pity doesn't become you. I saved every message, adding them to my arsenal. By the time I was ready to strike, I felt neither sadness nor rage. Instead, I felt a cold, clear purpose. They had treated me as nothing, insignificant, disposable, easily discarded. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I chose my mother's 65th birthday dinner for the reckoning. The same celebration we'd been preparing for when I discovered the pregnancy test, now rescheduled for exactly 2 months later. I knew they'd all be there. My mother, Cassidy, now visibly pregnant, Gabriel, and various family friends who remained oblivious to the drama unfolding beneath the surface of our perfect family facade. I arrived last, dressed immaculately in a crimson dress that made me look both powerful and untouchable. The conversation stopped when I walked in. My mother recovered first, rising from her seat with a practiced smile. Olivia, what a lovely surprise. We weren't sure you'd come. Her eyes darted nervously to the other guests, silently pleading with me not to make a scene. I wouldn't miss it, Mother, I replied, my voice carrying across the private dining room of her favorite restaurant. After all, family is everything, isn't it? Gabriel stood awkwardly, uncertainty written across his face. Cassidy remained seated, one hand protectively over her swollen belly. I moved to the empty chair that had been conspicuously left for me. They'd been expecting me, or at least hoping. As I sat, I placed a large envelope on the table. A gift, I explained to my mother's questioning look, for the woman who taught me everything about loyalty. The sarcasm wasn't lost on her, but she maintained her smile for the benefit of her friends. How thoughtful. I'll open it later, dear. Oh, I think you'll want to open it now, I insisted. It concerns everyone here. Something in my tone made her hesitate. Then, carefully, she opened the envelope and removed its contents. Her face whitened as she scanned the first document. What is this? She whispered. That's a copy of grandmother's actual trust, I explained pleasantly, as though discussing the weather. Not the fraudulent one you drafted to redirect my inheritance to Cassidy's baby. A collective gasp went around the table. My mother's friends exchanged glances. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. This is hardly the time. Page 2 is even more interesting, I continued, ignoring her protest. That's a letter from the Bar Association, confirming they're opening an ethics investigation into Gabriel's handling of the Meridian cases. Gabriel shot to his feet. What have you done? He hissed. Only what you taught me, I replied calmly. That family looks out for each other. Except I'm looking out for myself now. I turned to the stunned dinner guests. I should explain. My husband and sister have been having an affair for nearly 2 years. She's pregnant with his child. My mother not only knew about it but actively helped them hide it from me while trying to steal my inheritance to provide for their baby. The silence was deafening. Olivia, stop this immediately, my mother commanded, her voice shaking. You're embarrassing yourself. No, Mother. For the first time in my life, I'm standing up for myself. I gestured to the documents. Keep reading. Page 3 details the apartment Gabriel rented for their trysts, paid for with our joint savings. The savings that were meant for the children we planned to have. I turned to Cassidy, who sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Page 4 might interest you most, sis. Those are the text messages Gabriel sent to his law partner Thomas about you. The ones where he calls you a convenient distraction, and not nearly as complicated as her sister. The ones where he discusses how to handle you once the baby comes, since he has no intention of leaving his meal ticket wife, whose family connections have been so valuable to his career. Cassidy's head snapped toward Gabriel. What is she talking about? Gabriel's face had drained of color. She's lying. Liv has always been jealous of you. Read them yourself, I suggested, my voice gentle with false concern. I've highlighted the part where he tells Thomas that you're needier than advertised, but worth it for the, what was the phrase, eager enthusiasm you bring to bed. Cassidy snatched the papers, her eyes scanning frantically. Then she stood, one hand still on her belly, and slapped Gabriel hard across the face. You bastard, she choked out. You said you loved me. You said we would be a family. Baby, please. He reached for her, but she backed away. Don't touch me. Was any of it real? Any of it at all? I felt a moment of pity for my sister. She'd been played almost as thoroughly as I had. Almost. My mother tried to salvage the situation. Let's all calm down. Gabriel, explain yourself. Cassidy, sit down before you harm the baby. Always protecting everyone but me, I noted coldly. But then, that's been your pattern since we were children, hasn't it, Mother? I stood up, commanding the attention of the room again. There's one more document in that envelope. It's a lawsuit naming all three of you for fraud, emotional distress, and alienation of affection. My attorneys will be serving you officially tomorrow. I looked directly at Gabriel. Your firm has already been notified about the ethics investigation. They've placed you on administrative leave pending the outcome. Your corner office is being packed up as we speak. His face contorted with rage. You vindictive bitch! You've ruined everything. No, Gabriel. You did that when you decided your desires were more important than your vows. I turned to my mother, whose hands trembled as she clutched the edge of the table. The board of the Lawson Family Foundation has also received documentation about your attempted fraud. They'll be meeting next week to discuss your removal as chairperson. Grandmother's legacy deserves better stewardship than what you've provided. Her face crumpled, her carefully maintained public persona finally breaking. The foundation was her pride, her social currency among her wealthy friends. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. You'll destroy this family. This family destroyed itself, I replied evenly. I'm just making sure everyone pays the proper price. I picked up my purse and addressed the shocked dinner guests. I apologize for disrupting the celebration. The truth is rarely convenient. As I turned to leave, Cassidy called out, her voice broken. Olivia, wait. What about the baby, your niece or nephew? I paused, then looked back at her. I sincerely hope you'll be a better mother than ours was. That child deserves at least one parent who understands loyalty. With that, I walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of the family that had discarded me. Outside, in the cool evening air, I took my first deep, free breath in months. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. It's done. The trust is secured, and Eleanor's amendment has been flagged as fraudulent. Are you okay? I smiled as I typed my response. I'm better than okay. I'm free. 1 year later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold and pink. So much had changed. Gabriel's law career lay in ruins. The ethics investigation had uncovered far more misconduct than even I had known about. He'd been disbarred and was now working as a paralegal at a small firm 2 states away, the only job he could get with his tarnished reputation. Cassidy had given birth to a boy, James, 7 months ago. After the initial shock and hurt, we'd begun a tentative reconciliation. Not as the close sisters we once were. That bond was irreparably damaged, but as 2 women trying to find a new way forward. She'd filed for full custody and won, with Gabriel barely contesting it once the full extent of his betrayal of both of us came to light. He never loved either of us, she'd said during one of our cautious coffee meetings, James sleeping in his carrier beside her. He only loved what we could give him. I'd nodded, not offering forgiveness but not holding on to hatred either. Some people see others as stepping stones, not human beings. My mother had suffered the most complete fall from grace. Removed from the foundation board, ostracized by her social circle once the details of her deception became known, she'd retreated to a small condo in Florida, where she lived in relative isolation. She still called occasionally, her voice always carrying that odd mixture of entitlement and desperation. I answered sometimes, our conversations brief and superficial. The trust bonds between mother and daughter, once broken, were the hardest to repair, if they ever could be. My grandmother's inheritance had been properly distributed as intended. I'd used part of it to start my own interior design firm, which was flourishing beyond my wildest expectations. Turns out, without Gabriel undermining my confidence at every turn, I was actually quite talented and business savvy. My father had moved back to be closer to me, taking a consulting position that allowed him to mentor young engineers, a passion he'd abandoned during his troubled marriage to my mother. We had dinner every Sunday, rebuilding the relationship that had been strained during my years with Gabriel. "You remind me of your grandmother," he told me recently. "She always said that true strength isn't about dominating others. It's about having the courage to stand alone when necessary." As for me, I was dating again, cautiously. Julian and I had reconnected beyond our professional collaboration during my revenge plan. He understood my trust issues, my hesitation. He was patient. "Not all men are like Gabriel," he'd reminded me once when I pulled away after getting too close. "I know," I'd replied, "but all broken hearts take time to heal." The most unexpected change was in myself. The woman who had left that birthday dinner a year ago, cold with righteous anger, determined to make everyone pay, had softened slightly around the edges, not into the compliant, people-pleasing person I'd been before, but into someone who understood that healing wasn't just about vengeance. It was about reclaiming your own narrative. My phone chimed with a message from Cassidy. "James took his first steps today. I recorded it. If you want to see." I hesitated, then replied, "I'd like that. Some wounds never fully heal. Some betrayals permanently alter the landscape of your heart. But I'd learned that surviving doesn't always mean escaping unscathed. Sometimes it means building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed." I thought about the frightened, devastated woman who had found that pregnancy test a year ago, who had believed her life was ending when her family betrayed her. I wished I could tell her that she wasn't being destroyed but transformed, that the pain would forge her into someone stronger, wiser, and ultimately, happier. The sun dipped below the horizon, darkness falling across the city. But unlike a year ago, the darkness didn't frighten me. I knew now that even the longest nights eventually give way to dawn. And when that dawn came, I would be ready, not as someone's wife, or daughter, or sister, but simply as myself, whole, resilient, free. I had given everything to people who treated me like nothing, but in losing them, I had finally found myself. And that, in the end, was the sweetest